Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. We came with a new short story, The Circuit, for Francesco Jimenez. This story talks about the suffering of the migrants, people who travel from one place to another to find their living. It shows also the problems people face during these times, not only adults, but also kids as well. Our hero here is a young child. He's telling us his story. And this story of suffering, like he used to move from one place to another, looking for crops, seasons to collect crops, strawberry, grapes, and so on. His family used to move from one state to another to find a suitable crop to pick up or to collect, living in unsuitable places like garage, cottage, very humble places to live in. So let's see what's happening in this story and what does this title refer or indicate about this selection. Let's first have short introduction about the author, Francesco Jimenez, and to know, does this selection reflect part of his life or just he selected any name to represent his short story in an attractive title. So let's go directly to the beginning. Francisco Jimenez, he was born 1943. He was born in Mexico and came to the United States with his family when he was 4 years old. The family settled in California and became migrant workers. Although he could not go to school before the harvest ended, Jimenez studied in the fields. His hard work paid off as he went on to become an outstanding teacher and award-winning writer. So Jimenez here himself was a migrant. He came from Mexico to the United States with his family to settle in California. So now things started to be clear. Jimenez is writing parts of his life in this short story. So he's writing about a real experience, a real events that faced him as a child and his family in general. Not just, but besides, it also represents the suffering of all types of migrants all over the world. So let's go on to see more about this circuit. The background is very important and very expressive. And actually, I got this background from Francesco Jimenez, The Circuit, My Perspective 7. This selection is from The Circuit, Stories from the Life of a Migrant Child, a collection of autobiographical short stories by Francesco Jimenez. In this story, the narrator Panchito tells of his difficult early years as a part of a family of migrant farm workers. To him, life consisted of constant moving, like always, they're moving from one place to another, and work, with school widget and around harvesting jobs. The circuit in the title refers to the path migrant workers take every year to find jobs. So here we have two things to talk about: the hard life of a child, the path of migrant workers take every year to find jobs. So here, this is a story of a migrant child. He's writing and telling us about how hard his life was during this era of time. I'd like to tell you some sort of connotations about the title. The circuit in the title refers to the path migrant workers take every year to find a job. This means that poor migrants repeated the same things, actions, procedures every year to earn the living and to support their families. So circuit like a circle. So they are repeating the same actions every year to the same point Every year they look for crops to collect. They move from one place to another to settle in garage, in any place, just to live and to work every day to collect some money to support their families. So the circuit reflects more about the theme and the content of this selection. Let's have some sort of key words. Thoroughly, which is an adverb, means completely or entirely, or in a detailed and careful way. Actually, these examples are picked from the main text from the circuit. I thoroughly enjoyed the performance. 2. Weirdly, which is an adverb as well, in a tired manner. Example, I dragged myself wearily out of the bed at 5 o'clock this morning. So, actually, this sentence said by Panchito, which is the hero of our story in the circuit, when he used to get up early in the morning to go to the field to collect the grapes or strawberry with his father and brother. Instinctively, it's an adverb which is done automatically without thinking, like to do something, in an automatic way, like every day you do the same thing. Example, she knew instinctively that he was dangerous. Enthusiastically means with eager or interest. The first thing we have to do this morning is finish reading the story we began yesterday. He said enthusiastically. So also the story was said by Panchito, the hero of this story. He said that when he was at school with his teacher, Mr. Lima, who encouraged him to be good person and distinguished in reading English language. Hesitantly means in an unsure or cautious way. When I heard this, I felt my blood rush to my head. I felt dizzy. Would you like to read? He asked hesitantly. So, hesitantly means in an unsure way. He asked hesitantly. Understandingly means, in a knowing way or kindly. She doesn't have any understanding of politics. So, understandingly means with a great appreciation or knowing way or kindly. Let's have some short plot about the story. So, the story starts with a Mexican family, Panchito, the hero. Panchito family that migrated to America. They are looking for a part-time job to earn their living. They move from one place to another according to crops and seasons. So, they have no stable place to live or regular salary to be supported by. This selection reveals what life can be like when supporting a family means that even children have to work. The circuit is one of the author Francesco Jimenez's best-known stories. The narrator, as a young man, Latino boy, comes back from a day of picking strawberries to find all the family's belongings packed. With strawberry picking season over, like by the end of this season, which is collecting strawberry, the family has to move on. They need to move on to a new place to find a crop to collect to get some money. And the next place, he and his brother pick grapes with their father and hide from school bus. But after the grape season, the narrator finally gets to join other students in sixth grade, where he has a great teacher. Things are looking up. Although the narrator must move again just as a teacher, Mr. Lima begins to show him real opportunities, skills. The story helps students understand what a difference one adult can make in a child's life. So here he's telling us that he can join school after the end of the grape season. Let's see what next. And also here he mentioned how great Mr. Lima affected his character. The circuit Francesco Jimenez, quotation 5 from the selection or from the story. Suddenly I felt even more the weight of hours, days, weeks, and months of work. I sat down in a box. The thought of having to move to Fresno and knowing what was in store for me there brought tears to my eyes. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed thinking about how much I hated this move. The mother left the dear pots. She loved too much. It's a very bad feeling to move from one place to another. The circuit. So, this quotation reflects instability, fear of the unknown, unclear future. Okay, no kids, dreams. So here he's telling how bad, how effective for any human being to leave his place, to be always ready to move from one place to another, leaving his friends, things he like, places he used to or he was used to. So this is really painful for people and really affects the people psychology in a bad way. Not only adults, but kids even more. Number 9, Papa parked the car out in front and left the motor running. Listos. He yelled without saying a word. Roberto and I began to carry the boxes out to the car. Roberto carried the 2 big boxes, and I carried the 2 smaller ones. Papa then threw the mattress on the top of the car roof, and tied it with ropes to the front and rear bumpers. 10. Everything was packed except Mama's pot. It was an old, large, galvanized pot she had picked up at an army surplus store in Santa Maria. The pot had many dents and nicks. So here, this reflects how they are, or give a full detailed description of how they arrange to leave this place. So they collected all their things, boxes, packages, things, and even his mom left her pot. Most women like their kitchen tools because they get used to it. And maybe they have memories, and women are very sensitive concerning these points. So here, the writer reflects a full detailed scene, or draw a great scene how people act when they are leaving their place. A new possible job. So after the man went in, Mama clasped her hands happily and hurried back to the car. We have work. Mr. Sylvan said we can stay there the whole season, she said, gasping and pointing to an old garage near the stables. So here, I'd like to mention that the father, or the boy's father, cannot speak English very well, so he cannot ask people or to get more information. His mother is able to speak English. She learned to speak English, understand English. That's why she asked to ask people about, is there any vacancies, any possible jobs here? And it happened. She found a job with Mr. Sullivan, for the grape season. The father cannot speak English very well, so the mother achieved the mission. She asked Mr. Sullivan and assured that they can stay in the garage to the end of the vine season to work in the vineyards fields. The mother clasped her hand happily and told the family that they have a new work to do. This is Fresno, This is the new city they moved to work in the grapes or the vines yards, and where the boy met his teacher, Mr. Lima. Garage to live in the whole season. The garage was worn out by the years. It had no windows, the walls eaten by termites, strained to support the roof full of holes. The dirt floor, populated by earthworms, looked like a gray road map. So here he's describing how dirty this garage was. So when they moved to Mr. Sullivan Fields, they worked in the vineyards. He offered them an old garage to stay inside to the end of the season. They started cleaning it and started preparing it as their new home. And the next morning, they went to the vineyards and the temperature was very high. So here, this garage is really old, unclean, occupied with earthworms, dust, maybe some insects. So this reflects how hard life was. Most kids in his age used to play with toys, sleep in conditioned rooms. So this is really bad and hard experience for such a kid. But after all, it produced a great writer. Vineyards Field. In the first day in the vineyards, the boy got badly sick. The temperature was very high, and the boy drank too much water and felt sick to his stomach. And the next day, he got better and went to school. He felt sympathy with his brother, Roberto. His brother will not be able to attend school until the end of all the harvesting seasons to help his father making money to support his family. So the boy, after he got better of this sickness, he was able to go to the school, but his older brother must work with his father to support the family. The bus school. Kids must go to school. It's against law for kids to work during the early age. However, they must go to school to learn. That is why they were hiding from the school bus. So this quotation reflects a great value for kids. However, it was a problem with Panchito. Kids must go to school, not to work in fields. That is why Roberto and Panchito must hide from the school bus to avoid any legal consequences that could afflict their father. On the other hand, or on the other side, Roberto and Panchito felt sad when they saw kids in the same age going to school and they have to work with their father to support the family. As I told you, kids are very sensitive during this age, and they look at their mates or the other kids of the same age, and they wanted to enjoy the same privilege and same facility others have. Mr. Lima, sixth grade teacher. The narrator tells us about his first day at school and how hardly he managed to tell the lady that he is in the sixth grade. He also mentioned one of his teachers, Mr. Lima, is a good example of talented teacher who encouraged the boy or the hero to love school and taught him to read. He first cannot read and got angry with himself all the period for not being able to read. But he tried to read alone and went to Mr. Lima to teach him how to read hard words. Then he gave an English book to read. So the teacher gave the boy an English book to read to practice reading. At the first time, when the teacher asked him to read, he cannot speak. He cannot read. He was afraid. It's the first time, so he felt some sort of hesitation. He cannot produce a clear voice or read fluently, but gradually he went to the cafeteria and stayed there and read in a loud voice. Then he came to the teacher in class to ask him, "Teacher, can you help me how to read or how to pronounce these words?" And Mr. Lima felt happy and even encouraged him to read more and more, and they became friends. Mr. Lima taught the boy how to pronounce hard words. The narrator spent the whole month learning English with him. Moreover, Mr. Lima told the narrator that he can teach him music too during lunch hours. Mr. Lima became the narrator's best friend at school, but unfortunately, wind came with what we don't like. When the author or the narrator came home, he found everything they owned or they have owned packed neatly in boxes, ready for travel. He must leave to another place, leaving his school and his English teacher, Mr. Lima, his best friend at school. He must start all over again. So, this is the meaning or the real meaning of the circuit, that you start or make the same thing in a regular time, weekly, monthly, or even yearly. This is the secret of his suffering, like to do the same thing. When you do the same thing every year, there is no progress. You're just standing where you are, standing in your place. No development or progress. Let's have some sort of final brief summary. The narrator is a boy from Mexico whose family finds job as a migrant farm workers. When the strawberry season ends, the family moves to Fresno, where they get jobs picking grapes. When the grape season ends, the narrator goes to school starting sixth grade. He's scared and nervous. He has no friends and hasn't spoken English in months. His teacher, Mr. Lima, is a friendly, understanding man who helps him with his English. When Mr. Lima offers to teach him to play trumpet music, it looked like the narrator will begin to truly enjoy school. He rushes home to tell his family the good news only to learn that they are moving again. Simply, this is a shocking and disappointing end for the boy. Let's have some critical questions. What kind of work does Panchito's family do? They are migrant farm workers. They have part-time jobs according to harvest season, like they move from one place to another to find jobs. Why does the family move at the beginning of the story? They have been picking strawberries, but strawberry season is over, so they must find other work. They must move from one place to another to find a season, a crop to pick up or select. Why does Papa warn his sons that the school bus is coming when they are picking grapes? The boys should be in school or should be at school, but they are working instead. Law during this time forbid or prevents the work of young kids. Who befriends Panchito's friend, or he became the best friend of Panchito at school? Mr. Lima. He helped him. He taught him how to pronounce, how to read English. He even offered him to teach him music and other skills, but unfortunately they moved fast before the kid complete his skills and enjoy his year with his best teacher. I wish I could discuss the most important points in this selection. Please, if you have any comments, any questions, leave it below the video. Thank you very much and see you in the next selection. Goodbye, everybody.